What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin, an upcoming real-time strategy game, or an RTS, slated for a full release in November. However, the developers, ahead of Steam Next Fest, gave me access to the demo that will be available during that fest, which starts on October 9th, so I could share it with you. And given that real-time strategy games are a bit of a rare breed these days, I definitely wanted to take a look, and I was pleasantly surprised. That said, it looks like their plans for this game are rather ambitious, and the demo can only cover so much. And because of that, the demo covers the first few missions of the single-player campaign. But towards the end of the video, I'll talk about some of their plans for other features, such as multiplayer, a conquest game mode, and a map editor, etc. But first, let's talk about this single-player adventure. It puts us in the role of the Stormcast Eternals, one of 4 factions that will ultimately be available. 2 of the other 3 have been revealed to be the Orcs and the Night Haunt, or an undead faction basically, with the 4th one not having yet been revealed. But the Stormcast Eternals are on their way to a hidden power source in the land of Gur, which is a dangerous area infested with Orcs. So we have to use our real-time strategy chops to make it to the ends of these missions and do just that. But this is where things get a little interesting. Like a lot of real-time strategy games, there's a big focus on combat, obviously. However, I did notice there wasn't much in the way of building. In fact, there's really only 2 buildings at all available in the demo here. And while there are some upgrades and things available, you basically just build your command post and then arcane conduits. These 2 things are going to provide you your troops as well as some resources to use unit abilities. And that, combined with a few upgrades, is basically all there is to the building aspect of this. However, in order to build any of those things, you first have to find a ruin, or a point on the map essentially, and given that this is a Warhammer game, their intent on keeping you focused on the strategy and tactics of the battles isn't too much of a surprise. But that is where things get especially interesting, because while we only control the one faction for this demo, I already see some cool things. So our primary resources are basically command and realm stone. These are needed to use our abilities. Each unit we can offer up has abilities that they can either just have inherently, or they can be obtained through upgrading them on the unit menu. And this allows you to use those units to perform specific functions, such as making the large dragon breathe fire. And in addition to the base units and their unique abilities that they can learn, we also get hero units, which break a bit from the norm, whereas regular units sort of follow a rock, paper, scissors approach where they're basically defense swordsmen or ranged, each with an advantage over the other. Heroes tend to be a bit more unique with their special abilities. For instance, some of the ones I got to mess around with in the demo were a big consistent AoE heal over time, another one that was a sort of rallying cry that increased our damage for a short period of time, and another one that was just a big chain lightning spell. Despite only playing with just the one faction over a couple of missions, it did feel like they had a lot of cool stuff going on there, and combined with the pretty striking visuals for a game like this, it felt really cool to mess around with those things. And that, combined with more basic abilities such as the charge function for some of your units, and a pretty great suite of accessibility options to customize controls and make the more micromanagey aspects of a real-time strategy game a lot easier to deal with, I was pretty impressed with the few missions I played here in the demo, though a lot of it does seem to revolve around controlling choke points on the map while you build up your forces to wipe the enemy out. And I'm curious, especially given that we played the Stormcast Eternals for this, if there will be other opportunities to play other factions that have more unique challenges in the single-player campaign, because I think something like that would really sell this game to me personally, at least. Another thing about the single-player campaign, though, is that they seem to be going pretty big on the story. As you can see, there's a bit of a cinematic presentation, and it's my understanding they even got one of the Warhammer writers specifically to work on this game, and you can tell they're putting a lot of effort into it, and from what I've played, it really shows. So as for the demo in particular, I think it did a great job of doing what a demo is supposed to do, which is introducing you to a bunch of concepts and gameplay, and hopefully piquing your interest for more. And for me, this is exactly what happened. I'm very curious how the other factions play, what kind of missions they can mess around with here, where this story goes. But realistically, the single-player campaign is only one piece of the puzzle. And while this stuff wasn't in the demo, I did want to mention it it just for completeness sake, I suppose. They have a few other types of content planned. For starters, the obvious multiplayer route. When the game launches, there will be multiplayer available, allowing you to play matches online with other people, trying to, of course, win in online PvP, and it's my understanding that will be a 1v1 and 2v2 system. And while multiplayer isn't really my jam these days, there is also the upcoming Conquest mode. Conquest mode is essentially a dynamic campaign that presents more of a challenge because it intended to be more of a challenge than the single player campaign due to the relative randomness of it. Basically, the Conquest mode will roll a campaign for you based on all sorts of different factors, presumably some amount of procedural generation, to provide some extra challenge. It doesn't end there though. They do also have a map editor and a scene editor coming in as well. The map editor is pretty self-explanatory. You'll be able to create and make your own custom maps. And the scene editor is essentially a photo mode. However, you can take all the characters and props and things from the game and set up a scene to take a photo with, essentially was my understanding of this. And then last but not least, on that more free-form creative side of things, in classic Warhammer fashion, they should have the option to customize your unit's paint job, so to speak. That is to say, customize the color of all their armor, etc. via the army livery. But as for all of that content that should be available on launch, the Conquest mode is interesting to me, but I'm very curious about this single-player campaign because I did really enjoy what I played of it. That said, I still have a lot of questions, mostly revolving around the factions and things that obviously weren't in the demo, so it's hard to say how everything will pan out until the launch, of course. But again, if you want to see some of this for yourself, there will be a public demo of what I played available on October 9th when the Steam Next Fest starts, with the game itself launching about a month later on November 17th. I don't know if I'll be reviewing this one. Real-time strategy games are a bit outside of my wheelhouse. However, if I enjoy the single-player campaign enough, I might actually cover it as a sort of regular review, talking about the sort of offline normal content. But we'll have to see how it pans out. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. By all means, let me know down below what you think about Realms of Ruin. But regardless of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.